So we have just gone live, and maybe we'll wait a few minutes for hopefully some attendees to join us. I can see a couple are already here. Welcome everyone. We're going to give it a minute for some more people to join before we get started. I'm just going to wait another minute so that anyone who wants to join can join in, and then we can dive into everything. I'm excited for this chat today, so especially for the projects you've already set up in TolaData to show us around, because even for me, some of it will be a surprise to see what you've created. So I'm excited to see them.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it too. I think it's a lot of cool new features, I think, that people really like.
Definitely. Okay, so I can see a couple more people have joined us already. So I'm actually just going to get started. It's worth mentioning it's also going to be saved on YouTube afterwards. I'll mention that again as more people join, but in case you miss anything, you'll be able to come back to it on the TolaData YouTube channel. But yeah, let's get stuck in. So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for the webinar this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you're based. And we've decided to call this webinar Food for Thought because we thought it was a bit of a clever title, because we're focusing this kind of knowledge sharing session on digital M&E, specifically for Agri-Food projects and programs. So we're hoping to share some food for thought today. But before we even get stuck into any of that, please let me introduce myself. So my name's Hannah Maroney. I'm Irish. I'm based in Germany. I've been working at TolaData as a consultant for almost 2 years now, which is crazy to think about. And I also have a bit of a background in NGOs as well. I really enjoy helping organizations to digitize their M&E processes, which eventually is going to maximize their impact, right? It's why we enjoy what we do, I feel. And I've been directly involved in the setup of quite a few agri-food programs using TolaData over the last couple of years. And I've also had the pleasure of working with organizations throughout the life cycle of their agri programs as well. So hopefully what we'll get out of this today is some insight into what that has been like, but also what it potentially could be like for your programs too. And I'll hand over to you, Saiv, if you want to introduce yourself too.
Yeah, no worries. Hi, everybody. My name is Saiv. Like Hannah, I'm also from Ireland, and I currently work for TolaData as our customer success executive. So I've been here in Berlin, its headquarters, for around 10 months. I'm not as tenured as Hannah, but I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of different organizations alongside her. And, I have the pleasure of being able to onboard them and show them really how they can optimize all of their monitoring and tracking. I'm super excited today to show you around the platform and the projects that we've set up so that we can show you, effective ways of monitoring all of your indicators, your KPIs, and then also how you can integrate an SDG goal along with SDG indicators, as they're now more in demand. So with that, I'm going to hand you back over to Hannah.
Thanks. So I actually didn't even switch to our slide with our lovely faces on it, but you can see us on the side anyway. So we've introduced ourselves. This is who we are. And next, so I've already mentioned a little bit what we'll be covering today, but maybe we can just look at the general overall plan. So I'm actually going to start us off by just talking about why is monitoring and evaluation important for the sector. There will be some people joining this and some people watching back on YouTube who don't even need me to answer this question. You know, like, of course, it's important we know this, but also it's nice to be able to delve a little bit into the details, but then also look at how digital tools specifically can help. And then once you've kind of come to this realization, okay, M&E is important, digital tools can help, but how do I choose them? There's so many out there. Where do you go once you have this information? And then Sai's going to take over for the demo portion, as she already mentioned. In TolaData, looking at some sample programs that she set up already, how to bring all of your data together, how to make the most of the data once it's there with calculations, with analysis within the platform, and then how to tell the world what you achieved, right? You've done all the work, you want to brag about it, you want to show it to stakeholders, to donors, to internally and externally. Maybe you want to even embed your results in a website. All of that is possible and more. And so I was going to demo what that might look like within TolaData. And then at the end, we've set up some time for questions and discussion as well. And we're going to be using a little tool where you'll be able to send in your questions and we'll have them pop up live on screen, which is exciting as well. So let's just get started straight away. I hope you'll all enjoy my little cartoon that I've added for today. Basically, why use digital tools for M&E? M&E was traditionally paper-based, right? And obviously a paper-based practice means lots and lots of administration. You might even end up like this poor guy in the cartoon walking into this this flurry of papers, but that's what we want to try and avoid, right? But this man, we can assume he had to physically store his data, keep track of it in a paper-based way. Maybe you're using Excel, but either way, there's a lot of administration that can very quickly become super time consuming and very resource intensive as well, right? It's going to take up a lot of your team's time too. So there are an awful lot of advantages to moving to digital tools for your M&E. But let's look at what some of those are. So for example, again, there are so many. We've included 6 here. I'm sure as you'll even be watching this, you'll be thinking of more, but a few that we thought of were why you might use digital tools for M&E. Well, it offers improved data quality. Whenever data has to be entered manually, you have the risk of errors, and that risk increases the more data you have to enter in this manual way, right? Digital tools from the base, they're going to reduce this risk. You can also automate your data processing. For example, the calculation of results, aggregation of your KPIs, your analysis, visualization, even reporting. All of this can be automated, and that's not only going to save time, but it's going to make it a lot cleaner. It's going to make it simpler. There are a plethora of benefits to being able to automate these processes. You have real-time insights. You have immediate access to real-time, the most updated information. And this means that information is always immediately available. You can be sure it's up to date. You're confident in the figures that you're seeing. You're confident in what you're sharing with others in your team, but also externally, maybe like I mentioned before, with donors or stakeholders, other people relevant to your project. You want to be sure that what you're giving them is accurate information. And with real-time insights with digital tools, it's going to be the most up-to-date and most accurate possible. The fourth one we mentioned up at the top right here is the ability to easily connect to remote or inaccessible sites. Sometimes when you're working in the field, particularly in agri and food programs, you're going to be doing some of that data collection remotely, and digital tools gives you the option to be able to connect with those distant or remote or difficult to access sites much more easily. You can also help to implement best practices by using digital tools. I feel like this one is pretty obvious, but it's also worth mentioning. When you have a digital system, these best practices, they're going to start falling into place. You know, digital tools, they can guide your teams in the way data is collected, the way it's managed, the way it's analyzed, the entire life cycle of your data. If all of that is digitized, those best practices come along with that process, and it means you can be more confident in not only the data you input, but also the reports you generate too. And then the final point that we mentioned here is that digital tools can be used for knowledge management and data retention. So with digital tools, you can ensure that data is stored in one place. It's easily accessible to all staff during, but also after the project. You might want to be able to come back, review, look at past projects, their successes and their failures. And with digital tools, everything is stored and you're able to come and do that whenever you need to. So we know we want to use digital tools, but what tools are out there? I'm going to start this before we even look at the slide by saying there are lots, okay? There are plenty of tools out there. I'm sure everyone who's joining and everyone who's watching this already knows this, but what I've done for the purpose of this chat today is broken them down into three main categories, okay? So firstly, the data collection category. You can use Microsoft Excel, KoBoToolbox, Survey CTO, TolaData has its own inbuilt form builder. There are many, many options for your data collection. And then secondly, once the data has already been collected, it's time to use it, right? It has to be managed. So this is the management and reporting section. Depending on your needs, there are different options. This is where TolaData comes in for the M&E side of your data life cycle. And then finally, if you want a more in-depth analysis, you can then export the data entered in the second step into another tool, for example, Power BI or Tableau. But how do you choose, right? There's so many. How do you pick just one or just three, or which ones are relevant to your project and your program? There are a number of factors I think should be considered when choosing the right tools for you. I feel these are maybe 6 of the most pertinent factors, or 6 at least, that you should start with when considering a move to certain digital tools. So firstly, you want it to be appropriate to your context and to your needs. There are many questions to think about even inside of this one kind of criterion. So you want to consider what type of project it is, how many organizations are involved, how complex the project is, and more. You want to really hone in on the details of your project to make sure that the tool is appropriate to its context, right? The tool that you choose, you need to figure out if the possibility of integration with other tools will be necessary. For example, like I mentioned, if you want to do your data collection in KoBoToolbox, right? KoBoToolbox is a super popular tool for data collection because it's got a lot of features like online, offline collection. If you're collecting data in the field where you don't have an internet connection, you can use Kobo really easily. But you want to make sure that then the tool you use for your M&E can import data easily from the likes of KoBoToolbox, right? So you want to double check that is possible. Another question to consider then is how the tool will be used. This links in the online offline thing that I already mentioned. For data collection, particularly obviously in the field, maybe it's an agricultural project. Agri activities are being undergone in a location where there is no access to the internet. You want to then make sure that you're able to do your data collection in an offline capacity. You don't need an internet connection to do that. However, then for the management and analysis side of it, coming back to the office where you have your internet connection, online is fine in that case. So you need to weigh up the different possibilities. The next side then, in a slightly different vein, is the data protection side of things. I feel like this is it's always been important, but it's such a buzzword lately. It's become even more important than ever. So you want to check where your data is stored, the compliance with local regulations. For example, in Europe, for us, we're based here in Germany, that's the GDPR. So TolaData, of course, is entirely GDPR compliant. One of the most important points then, in my opinion, is to make sure it's user-friendly, right? I'm sure Saib will agree from the customer success side of things that's a feedback we get pretty frequently from our users, is that you want the tool to be, maybe I'm a bit nerdy to say, but you want it to be enjoyable to use, right? You don't want it to be difficult or to add more work to your team's probably busy plate already, right? You want it to be kind of seamless integration into the systems you're already using, and for it to be easy and helpful as opposed to the opposite. It seems obvious, but it's still an important point to consider. And then that links into this final point here, which is the cost to set up. Implementation these days, there's no need to build a custom tool, or very little at least need to build a custom tool. There are a lot of off-the-shelf options where you can immediately get your team set up and running in this new digital tool and start them off immediately. This kind of integration into your pre-existing systems, it's an important factor. And then once you've chosen, right, you've figured out what you're going to use for your data collection, what you're going to use for your management and tracking, how you're going to manage your visualization, your reporting. You've figured that out. This is an example of what that whole data cycle might look like with TolaData. So we begin in the data collection side of things. So maybe I've already mentioned KoBoToolbox. I know from working with a lot of Agri-Food programs already, this is probably the most popular option because it's got a lot of options for question fields. It's very user-friendly. And you also, of course, have that offline usage option in Kobo. But then there's also a plethora of other options: survey solutions, survey CTO, ONA, Google Forms, Excel. TolaData can actually import forms from any machine readable source. And that's why we put TolaData at the very heart of this diagram, right? So really it's at the center of everything that's going on, from the collection all the way to the reporting. TolaData is at the heart of it. So of course you're going to use TolaData for your management and tracking. So I was just about to speak to you even more about what that's going to look like. And then you can also use it for your reporting, for your dashboards. Sive will also show you what that looks like. But then you also have the option for export of user configured data sets into another tool. For example, maybe Power BI, Tableau, Superset. You have those examples too. So now it's time to see TolaData in action. I'm happy to hand over to my colleague Sive, who's gonna demo TolaData, including some sample projects we've set up especially for this webinar. So Sive, if you want to be able to share your screen.
Yes. I'll do that now. Bear with me a second.
I can see here we've had some comments from YouTube, which is excellent. We're really happy to see your questions. How to use these forms and make and join them into TolaData. Jean-Claude, we're going to come to all of this, all of these questions really soon. So keep them in the chat there, and we'll come back to them. We're going to begin with Sive's demo. So I'll hand over to you, Sive, but I assure you at the end we'll come to these questions too. So thank you for adding them.
No problem. Thanks so much, Hannah. Okay, so today I want to show you a project which has been based around an SDG goal. I believe it's the first, of no poverty. So it's to end poverty in all of its forms. So I'll show you just very briefly when you log into TolaData that this is going to be your home page, so your interface. On the screen here, you've got a list of all of your different projects that you can also put together in customizable groups or portfolios. You can also additionally filter them by country and/or status. Here on the left-hand side is our navigation panel. This will bring you to all the different sections of your project. We're going to be looking at 4 points of interest, especially today, which is going to be the details tab, where I'm going to be showing you essential bits of information to include into your project, points of reference, of course, and additionally tools to help you set targets, to also disaggregate information into more layers. We'll pass on to the activity section. This is going to help you put together a step-by-step actionable plan towards your goals. I will include, some tools on setting up a budget and creating an approval workflow, and also how to maybe integrate some indicators to help anchor the project. In the indicator section, I'm going to be showing you how to set up a results framework, which is going to help orient you towards the right direction. This will also provide a framework for you to input some KPIs and indicators, so you can track and monitor your agricultural project and or your SDG indicators. And then finally, the last big point we're going to be looking in on is your dashboards. This is going to be where you can really quickly put together reports after all the hard work you've put in and show, disaggregated results, aggregated results, and to provide really a window for your partners and donors to see how well you're getting on and to, be in constant communication with them. So I'm going to go back now to the details level. And I'm going to start off here. So the project that I've created today is going to be based on the SDG goal of no poverty, as I mentioned. However, with big SDG goals like this, there's not one way of trying to tackle this. Usually you're going to have to implement maybe a multi-pronged approach to tackling it. So I've got 3 different ways that I kind of want to aim and focus in on it. And so my first goal, which I want to aim for, would be to maybe increase the income of a people group within a certain area. So that, and specifically in this project, that's going to be local farmers. So I've based this off of a EU document. I'd recommend if you're setting up a project that you consult a lot of different documents on M&E, as I'm sure you do, but also I'm going to mention that you are going to get a few different resources in our gift that you're going to receive after this call. So here is where you can add and also modify essential bits of info, including the name, the status of your project, important dates, including the start and finish. You're going to put in the project code, the countries which are associated, as well as if it's funded. And as I'd mentioned, you can put these into customizable groups or portfolios. I'd like to keep all of these goals or projects together so that I can, quickly access them and just have them nicely filtered for myself. On the right-hand side here, you've got your overall budget. This gives you a brief idea of, how much do you have at your disposal, how much have you spent, and how much you got remaining. Under sites here, you can map out all the essential sites of your project. These appear on a nice Google map chart here. I've included even more information. I put in geographical coordinates that really pinpoint exactly the regions of focus or the areas of focus. And this helps just ground me and see kind of maybe perhaps other factors down the line of how location is important in my project. If you'd like to set up a timeline for your project, you can do that here. You can do that by inputting phases, as we've done here. This really helps put an overarching structure to your project, which is always useful. And you can filter this by day, week, and month. Under our Stakeholders tab, this is where you can bring together all of your stakeholders, your donors, and your partners. I think it's really good to have them all together in one place for each project, really just to remind you, because sometimes, your different partners and your stakeholders will have different requirements. It's good to have those in your head before you set out so that you have those in the back of your mind as you're creating new features and new indicators. Under documents here, this is where you can bring all your necessary documents together in one place. It's very useful just to have one area for you and your team to access important documents, because sometimes, as I'm sharing, I know documents that can really get lost in email threads and even can get lost in my Google Drive or even on my computer. If you link them all here, there's this really reduces the data silos that can sometimes occur with teams. So you can link these either via your Google Drive, or you can do this via URL. And you can also include a path if you have very physical paper copies that are in an office. You can also note that down just so everyone knows where the location of this document is. So targets, as everyone knows, I'm sure targets are very important to set for you. So you have a deadline and some concrete goals to strive towards too. They also help you really focus in on and prioritizing to increase numbers. On TolaData, you can create targets in accordance to the calendar year. So you can create your annual targets, semi-annual, quarterly, etc. But of course, we welcome you to create your own if you have very specific ones required by your donors or your stakeholders, like we've done so down here. So for disaggregation, again, we know that disaggregation is becoming ever more important, especially with SDG goals, because it's important that we understand how different policies affect different people groups. So on TolaData, we have the possibility of disaggregating by country. This is already established in the system, but we've also absolutely got, customized disaggregations that you can make yourself as required by your donor or your stakeholder, which helps peel back the layers of, effect of different people groups. We have plenty that we've created here, which I'll show you how to use later on. And you can implement these for one project, or you can implement them for many different projects. So you can actually aggregate results and disaggregate on a big level. You can bring your team together under this tab here. You can assign them different roles. This is useful so you know who's doing what, and other team members understand the powers of different colleagues. Now I'm going to move to our activity section. Here is where you're going to be putting an actionable plan into place. This really lends itself, I think, to a good strategy and also just your plan of action. Here, we've got a hierarchical system for activities. So what I like to do is I like to create like a mainstay activity, which will provide the overarching activity for me. So I've named this like the build-up stage, and I can create sub-activities, which gives me a step-by-step of what I need to do within this activity. Already on this list, you can glean a lot of information. You can see, the progress of each individual activity. You can see who has been assigned, the start and end dates. You can have some budgetary information as well included, and a status. This really helps me visually just to follow how the project is unfolding. And I'm going to show you an example of how to set up these activities underneath in this stakeholder event. So I'm going to show you now how you might use one of these activities to plan a stakeholder networking event. Once you click into this activity, you can modify or add important bits of info, including the name. You can mark who is responsible for this activity, at what stage is it at, if it's a milestone. You can include a color. We've got a selection of green, yellow, and red. This for us just means that the event is closed, but you can use colors in any way you'd like. You can attribute any signification if you want. There is no rule on it. You can attach it to a phase. So as I had shown you before, on the details level, you can attach it to your timeline, and this will just help pinpoint at what stage it is at of your timeline. You can include extra bits of information in the description section. You can include links and images if you'd like, just to help other users as they're looking through the activity, giving them extra context. So under the Approvals tab is where you can put together an approval workflow for a certain activity. So in this example, I'm trying to set up a stakeholder networking event for my project to get more funding. And I want to get a budget approved by a superior of mine. So I have selected budget approval from this configurable list that you can change yourself. And I want to assign it to Joe Bennett. I can include extra bits of information, including links and including just more descriptive info. And as soon as I click Save, Joe will receive an email and she'll be redirected here to either approve or not to authorize the budget that I've submitted. This really helps in teams just to be on the same page with where approvals are at, who has requested them, and at what point they're at. So we can see I'm still awaiting decision from Anya. Hopefully she'll respond to me soon, but this helps you move on quicker instead of not having them essentially. Under budget here, this is where you configure budgetary items and keep track of the budget that you have for each individual activity. So in the stakeholder Activity, I already have a few budgetary items here. I'll show you how easy it is to add. So let's say, for example, we want to hire a speaker for this event. We'll just name the description speaker. We can enter a budget amount in. So let's say it will cost maybe around 750, but in actual fact, we only need to pay 500. When we submit, this will be added to the list, and the software will already calculate how much budget you have remaining. Documents here works in the same way as it does in the details level, but I'd highly recommend, if you can, even adding specific documents here to help organize them in a more succinct way. So we have some related documents here for our stakeholder event that I've linked through URL path and also through a regular path, because these fundraising leaflets are a physical one in our office. Now for indicators, this is where you can start putting maybe concrete data next to it, so you can help anchor it a bit more. I've assigned an indicator for my indicator section, and this just helps everyone know perhaps how many stakeholders arrived, as obviously is very important. The more stakeholders, the better. And this just helps us track, how well did this activity go, and it went quite well. And then finally, as on the details level, you can include sites and stakeholders, which is just very helpful to keep in mind for each activity. Again, as I mentioned with stakeholders, it's important to know kind of requirements, etc. So that's why I would recommend including them in each individual activity. Now onto the indicator section. So here we have our 3 different tabs, our indicator results framework and exports. We often would start with our results framework, because here is where you're going to really be putting the framework of your project together, of all your goals. So for me, the SDG is a long-term goal that I want to work towards. So I started off with that, and then I worked backwards more into the present day. So I added this element, and this works as a parent-child in a parent-child model. So whenever I want to add a new element, I can simply click the plus button. So once I've added this element, I added another one down here. And so my intermediate goal is going to be a higher rural income for farmers from a certain area. And I want to set about doing it by increasing their productivity, increasing their ability to get better yields, etc., and also to increase their support network. So this can be networking a lot more with different farmers, skill sharing with them, and also perhaps advising farmers to invest in more insurance so that in case anything bad happens, that they're well protected. With this results framework, this is just a good point of orientation for you as you're setting up your indicators. You can include descriptions here as well, just to help clarify them a bit more for you. It's nice here, once you click on this indicator, that you can see all the indicators that are linked to all these result framework elements. And of course, over the course of your project, you might find that certain elements actually don't work in certain areas. So for example, say this outcome here, strengthening farmer network, doesn't really work underneath our objective. No problem. I can click this modify button. I can change our parent element, and I can switch it over under this element here. Super easy. But another use of this results framework is that it acts as the headings of your indicators in this indicator section. So in this indicator section, these headings will appear above, and as you're creating your indicators, you can keep referring to these headings just to remind you of the goal, just to see if you're always staying relevant to this goal and going in the right direction, which I think is super useful. On this page already, a lot of information is available to you if you have a project manager that wants to have a quick look through. They can see the format of your indicators, how often are you collecting this data from, the status, which is very important. Are you lagging back? Are there any delays? And they can also glean a lot of info on how are your actuals comparing against your targets, as well as important KPIs. So As you can see here, I've got 2 SDG indicators. I'll show you a bit about those later. These are ones that I picked from the UN list of indicators. I'd recommend you have a look at that as well, because there's a huge amount there, and they're applicable, I think, to a lot of projects that you can set out to do. So I'm going to show you now how to create an indicator, just how easy it is to set up here, and how quick you can get results. So I'm going to click on Add New Indicator here. The indicator that I'm going to set up is the number of smallholder farmers trained. In selecting my indicator format, I have 3 options: numeric, percentage, or qualitative. In this case, I want to pick numeric since we're measuring numbers. I can choose a desired direction of progress. So in this case, I want this to be increasing. I want there to be more smallholder farmers trained. However, I also, maybe in a different indicator, want the rate of poverty to go down. So I can choose decreasing in that case. But for now, I'll leave it at increasing. The target that I want to have, this is, let's just say 150. You can include a baseline. This is if perhaps in the past I had already trained farmers, but in this case I haven't, so I'll leave that blank because it's not necessary. I also have the option here to make it an aggregated indicator. Aggregated indicators on our system essentially help you aggregate information from different indicators, but also it helps you, pardon me, perform calculations on different indicators. This includes multiplication, subtraction, division, averages, etc. I'll show you a bit about those later. So I'll click Save. And then to input even more information, I'll click into the indicator. So here we're brought to the details section. On this section, I can include extra bits of info, including an indicator number. I can modify the name, the format, where does it sit on the results framework element. I can set the data collection frequency. Let's say I want to take in info every month. I can mark it as a key performance indicator if I'd like. You can add bits of description to enrich the context of this indicator. And as Hannah mentioned as well, you can include notes of best practices or how people should monitor this indicator. You can include this in the notes section. For reporting here, what I often would do is I'd write down kind of the source of the information that I'm extracting from. So like say, for example, in this case, I'd say maybe certifications issued from training. We want to see the number of farmers who attended a training session. And we'll report on this, let's say, annually. Under targets and disaggregation, this is where we can modify our targets, input a baseline, have a baseline date. We can include units of measure or change the desired direction of progress. But for me, the exciting part is definitely adding periodic targets and disaggregation types. So I'll just show you how quickly it is just to input, let's say, annual targets for this indicator. Let's say for 2020, we wanted at least 25 farmers trained. I might make this easier. And again, maybe 25. And then in our final year, 2022, we have it at 50, for example. Once I've established these targets into the system, they will automatically compare against the actuals that I input. So this will be automatically generated by the system, both in the results summary of our indicators, but also in the dashboard section as well, which is great. And I'm also going to include a disaggregation type here as well. Perfect. So to input data into your indicator, you have 2 options. You can either do this manually, which I'll just show you now. You input your date collected, since we're doing yearly, I'll do the end of December 2020. Let's say 27 farmers were trained. You can include evidence if you like, just to show where you got this information from. You can include an identifier. So this will help maybe if you want to identify the person who input the information, and also potentially a site, where was this information collected. And I'm going to disaggregate this data as well. So let's just say 19 of these farmers were men. Let's say 3 were women and 5 were non-binary. Now, if you look at these numbers, you might notice that they do not add up to 27. But if that happens and I click save, oh, it actually did. Sorry, I was purposely trying to make that not add up to 27. So if I make that 4 and click save, the system will alert us if there is an incorrect, or if it suspects that there might be an incorrect number added. In that case, though, I had added it correctly, but I'll correct it again now to be the right number. I can save that. And then the second way of inputting information is to pull it from a data table. So again, we'll select the date, December, end of December. We'll select our data table. This is one that I already uploaded from KoBoToolbox. I'll show you how you can do that a bit later on. I'll select my data column, number of farmers trained, and a calculation formula. So I want to know the overall number that were trained. So I'll select sum. So in this case, it was 40. And it's that easy. I'll add in one more entry just for fun. Let's say end of this month. I'll say up until now, maybe 25 have been trained. Men, 4 women, and 1 non-binary. So as you're inputting a lot of different data points, you can change the formula of this indicator. This could be a sum, average, median, or last collected date. For example, for rate of poverty, I want to know the last collection date of that, because that will show me the up-to-date latest percentage of poverty. But in this case, I want to see the overall number of trainees, so I'll choose sum. I can also select a status. Is this indicator going as planned? I think it is. So I'm going to say it's on track. And then in a results summary, already we can get some preliminary overviews of how the indicator is going. We can either see how the indicator is going on an annual, semi-annual, quarterly basis. We can see how does it stack up against the targets that we set, that I just literally set up for you there. We seem to be doing well, and we're on track of achieving it this year. And we've also included disaggregated results. I didn't disaggregate everything, so that's why we have some unclassified results, but for those that we have, we've already some information on the different demographics that are involved in these trainings. So I've set up my indicator. I want to use it in a more interesting way now. So I have also set up an aggregated indicator of all the different trainings we led, because we had a lot of different programs that helped train farmers in different latest farming methods, in financial know-how, etc. So now I want to be able to count all of the farmers that were trained. So I'm going to look for my aggregated indicator that I created, overall number of smallholding farmers who received training. It's very similar to the regular indicator. It's just that it uses other indicators to create the full amount. So now I want to add this indicator to an aggregated one. I'll select my project. I'll select the indicator, which I can filter very quickly. I'll update the list. Additionally, this is where you can set different calculations if you'd like. So you can have obviously sum, subtraction, multiplication, division, and average. You can also include weights and adjustments. This can be super useful if you want to avoid double counting. You can also use it for maybe currency conversion, which is great. But in this case, we won't, because that's not necessary. So I'll just save. And then the indicator will update with the value that I've inputted. So I can drag and drop this to be there. Now for the SDGs that I've included, I have picked these two, as I mentioned, from the UN document. These are aggregated indicators because for me, I think it would be super useful to include, let's say for this first one, proportion of men, women, and children of all ages living in poverty within this region. As it happens, I'm trying to track the rate of poverty, which I have here. So I've linked it to this aggregated indicator. And what I can do as well in my other projects, I can aggregate this indicator into another overarching project. So there's no end really to aggregation here, which is fantastic. But I only want to track this on a local level. But if at one point in the future I want to track this on a national level, I can, of course, as I just mentioned, aggregate this to another overarching project that will track the whole national level. So again, as you see, all I did was just link it here. Now briefly onto our form section. As Hannah mentioned, TolaData can create online shareable forms. A big advantage with TolaData is that once participants have filled out your forms, the information that they've inputted will appear immediately on the software, and you can use it directly into your indicators, which is great. But if you are using other tools that are more useful for you at the moment, such as KoBoToolbox, which we love, and we'd recommend that you continue using them. Now on data tables, as Hannah mentioned as well, TolaData is very integratable with a lot of different tools. So we have API with KoBoToolbox, which gives you really a seamless importation. So for example, for farmer attendance, all I did was click on this here and import it, and it appeared immediately into my account. And you can do this as well with Google Sheets, OneDrive, and ONA. And for any other data collection tool you use, you can absolutely just download your form in a CSV file and upload it here, and you can use it, no problem. And finally, I think this is also Hannah's favorite feature as well as mine. It's the dashboards. So, after a really long time collecting loads of data, feeding it into the system, really doing diligently, you can now just put it out there and show everyone, your partners, the results and your successes. So this dashboard really provides a window for everyone to see how well you're doing. And on these dashboards, you can populate them with what we call widgets. We have a few different types. We have, text and image. So as you can see here, this would be your text and image widgets. You can use it to include articles, reports, blogs. I do it maybe more as a storytelling contextualization for anyone that I'm reporting to. So this helps them ease right into, the information they're about to see. So in this case, I want to explain, why did we choose farmers in the specific area to help them with higher their income? Well, we found that in this specific area, farmers were more affected by poverty than any other different profession. So that's why we targeted them. And I use this disaggregation chart to help me show this. I also was showing partners how much they're lagging behind. So this can help us create targets so that farmers can have an income that will hit the living wage. And as you can see, we have many different types of widgets, cumulative, non-cumulative, actuals against targets. We've got some nice images here, and even, some cumulative line charts, line graphs, etc. And what's really great is that when you're feeding information into the system, say for example, you've set this up and then, you've got more information you need to include. This updates in real time. So you don't have to keep, updating this. This will do it by itself, which is great. And I'll show you here with the sharing feature. You can share this either internally with colleagues or your team. You can even do it with an individual here. but you can also share it externally. So you can allow an unguessable link to be created, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. I'll copy this. We're going to open up a new tab, and I'm going to paste it here. So once you share this with your partners or your donors, this is what they're going to see. It's going to be a corkboard of all the different widgets that you've included. And they're going to be able to go through this and check out all the different results that you've provided. And again, this is going to update in real time. So this can be just a source of communication between you both, so they can actually see your results in real time and react to them, which are great. And additionally, there's also the possibility of printing this out in a PDF format if you like. Also, these widgets, you can change the size of them, you can maneuver them around the dashboard as you wish. And as we speak, our developers are creating even more exciting features, including customizable colors, so you can have ones that match your organization, and even more for different kinds of widgets and diagrams. And in the future, we'll be working more on calculations. So around us here as well, if you do end up maybe trialing TolaData, you have some helpful resources at your disposal if you wish. So you have on the left here and the bottom, step-by-step guides on how to create what I've shown you today. And also on the bottom right-hand corner, if you want to talk to a human, as I certainly do a lot, you can contact us immediately and we'll be at your aid. We'll be happy to help you. So that was a quick rundown of TolaData and how you might track your agricultural projects and integrate SDG results. So I might hand you back to Hannah now for some closing bits of information from us.
Thanks so much, Sive. It's funny, I already know this information from working in TolaData, from setting everything up with organizations, but I still find it so fun to watch and check out how you've set up the particular project. And I think, oh, that's a cool idea for the dashboard. I'm going to take that for my one. So thank you. So yeah, we've seen everything there is to see in TolaData now. There are still, there's more features to explore. And I feel like as you use the tool, a piece of feedback we really frequently get from our clients and our users is that the more they explore, the stronger they become, and the more they realize, oh, well, actually, there's this feature that's really applicable to me that I didn't even think of a few weeks ago. And it's the joy of TolaData, and it's the joy of a flexible tool, I think, for your agri-food programs as well. And that's why we absolutely invite you to sign up to the free trial of TolaData. You can do so by just following this link. You can go to toladata.com. It couldn't be simpler. And there's a form, there's a little orange button on the website which says sign up for a free trial. There's no payment or anything necessary. You can just sign up, you can check it out, play around in the system, have a go of creating your own indicators and dashboards like Sive showed us today. And if you do choose to move to a subscription, we'll be there to help you to do so, to help you to move into that paid plan. And we should mention our commitment to the nonprofit sector is that we will always offer 50% off our standard prices for NGOs. So if you are coming to us today from a registered NGO, please be safe in the knowledge that you can avail of 50% off TolaData. And our prices down here at the bottom start from just €49 for 2 users. We also have just launched the community support program. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sive, but I think it was like less than a week ago we set up this community support program, and we're all really, really excited about it. So to explain to you super quickly, we at the team at TolaData, we're very committed to inclusive digital transformation. We believe that developing capabilities to use technology meaningfully is absolutely essential for achieving these SDGs, for achieving SDGs like no poverty that Sive mentioned today, but also any of the other ones, and also for your own internal KPIs and goals and things. Everyone is working towards something good, and we don't want to deny local and grassroots organizations the ability to access digital tools to maximize their impact. So for this reason, because we want them to be able to have equal opportunities despite size or location, we're offering everyone the chance to apply to our new community support program. You should be able to see the link down the bottom. It's toladata.com/CSP. And if you go there, you'll find you can apply with some information about your organization and why you'd like to apply to this program. And basically, we'll offer it to grassroots organizations for just €19 a month. We want to work together to achieve digital equity. It's important that everyone be able to access digital solutions and maximize their impact in that way. And now for the questions. I realize we've come up to only 5 minutes left. I think some of the questions we've had in YouTube have already been answered. For example, Jean-Claude had a question about how to input forms into TolaData. Sive, you showed that already in the demo. There was another question about access and permission levels for a user. Sive, you showed this in the team tab in the details section. But if there are any more, I would invite you to go follow this link, menti.com, and you can enter the code shown on screen. Or if you're on your phone, you can use the QR code that's being shown on screen, and you should be able to then enter your questions, and they will then pop up on the screen for us to answer live. So I can even share the Menti screen with everyone. And we'll be able to see if any of those questions come in live. Hopefully, we were able to answer your questions as we went along. Sive did some really in-depth demonstrations there, so maybe it's all already clear for you guys. But even if you have some comments, you're welcome to add them here. We absolutely encourage you to do so. But again, like Sive already mentioned and I touched on as well, when you come, you sign up for the free trial, you're probably going to have more questions as you start to use it. And that's where things like our user guides come in, but also our live chat system that Sive showed you as well. The customer support team are incredibly knowledgeable and incredibly helpful and lovely to interact with. And I'm not biased at all, so you can trust me. I don't see any questions coming in on Menti for the moment, but I think that probably speaks to the detail of your demo, Sive, so I can assume that to be a good thing. I'll leave it up for another few minutes just in case. There's also another section in Menti where you can register at toladata.com for a free trial, or you can leave your email in the Menti element. Emails won't be shown on the stream, but we'll be able to see them on our side, and then we can be in touch with you to help you set up if you want to share that with us. That's also an option, so feel free. There are quite a few ways to get in touch with us. Oh, I see we've had a question, and I need to zoom a little so my eyes can see. For how long the project data is stored on the TolaData server? It's an awesome question, and I think very topical as well at the moment. So it will depend on the length of your subscription. So for example, if you're adding project data and you subscribe and the length of your program cycle is 4 years, you want to use TolaData for all of those 4 years. After the 4 years, if you don't want to use TolaData anymore for whatever crazy reason you might want to move on, you have the option to export everything that you have input to the platform. It exports to Excel, and you can save all of that information yourself. In terms of the servers themselves, I don't have the exact dates of how long they're stored after the fact, after the subscriptions end. I know for a certain fact that it's in line with the GDPR regulations on data storage. And if you need a bit more information on that, I'd be more than happy to either point you in the direction of one of our colleagues more versed in data protection, or to share our technical and organizational measures document with you. That's no problem. But if you're worried about inputting data and losing it, I can assure you everything you put in can be equally taken out. So you don't need to worry about that. I can see a few thank yous in the YouTube chat, so thank you for adding those, everyone. It's been a pleasure to speak with you today, and I really hope you found it beneficial. I know even I did. I found it beneficial listening to your demo, Sive, so I hope it was the same for anyone who joined us and anyone who joins us after the fact and watches us back on YouTube as well. We will be in touch with the free gift that we promised for joining the webinar. I've checked it out myself and it's got some really incredible resources. So I think everyone will be able to take something that applies to them from it. But I think with that, since there are no more questions, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you very much. And over to you, Sive, if you want to sign off.
Thanks so much, everyone, for joining. As Hannah mentioned, there's lots of ways of getting in touch. We'd love to hear you on LinkedIn as well. Have a reaction. We'd love to see your content too. And of course, at info@TolaData with any other questions if you want to contact us directly. So yeah, have a great day, everybody. It was lovely to present. It was a pleasure to present this demo to you. So hopefully see you all again soon.
Thanks so much. Bye.